Welcome back to another episode of the Officialize Experience. It's a Misery Monday episode on the Officialize Experience. We're going to be talking about a tough loss last night the Vikings had to the Chicago Bears, 20-25 to the Chicago Bears on the road on Sunday Night Football. So, Kirk, as you know, after the press conferences died down, the adrenaline of the game dies down, and you're on the team plane, and you're just kind of sitting there, what are the thoughts that are lingering in your head on that flight home?
Yeah, not a good feeling. It's one of those weeks that happens from time to time, but you hate it because it's hard to sleep that night. It's hard to, it just eats at you. And for me, the plays I think about are the interceptions, and those are really the main ones. I think other than that, for the most part, it wasn't terrible football, but the interceptions just eat at you, saying, man, we can't have that, and I know we can't have that, and yet it still happens. So, you can't get it back, but at the same time, you hate that you did it, and so you kind of sit there and just try to move on from it and learn from it, and understand that, as we've talked about, when we do protect the football, we have the kind of defense, the kind of special teams that we're going to be in every game, and I think if we had won the turnover battle significantly yesterday, like we should have or could have, we probably win the game or have a much closer game. So, it's certainly, we know what's going on. It's not a mystery, but we gotta be better.
Specifically on those turnovers, specifically the interceptions, the first one seemed to be just like a miscommunication or something, but take us through that one quickly, and then maybe a little bit of what happened on the second one.
Yeah, the first one was 100% on me. Just a bad deal there. And then the second one was also 100% on me, but just what took place. I just looked at that corner and felt him squat and then thought I needed to throw the ball over his head to the corner route. But even though the corner looked a little flat-footed, he wasn't taking away the route to the flat to Diggsy. So the throw should have gone to Diggsy 10 out of 10 times. And it's a throw I made two or three other times in the game already. And just frustrating, disappointing. And, I think that was a play. I think it was a one-possession game at that point. And, the game was there to be won multiple times, and it's a good defense. I go back to saying statistically, and just after playing them, you realize they're well coached. It's a good scheme. It's a good front seven. There's a group of players that play hard together. So they're going to be in a lot of games this year simply because of their defense, let alone what they do offensively. But we certainly felt like we could have played better.
So not only did the turnovers that you guys create take some points off the board, field goal, the first couple, it also gave them obviously 6 points on that second interception.
Yes.
But my next thing is that your defense did force some turnovers yesterday. Oh, yeah. So, they got 3 turnovers.
That's the thing. Is points off turnovers. A couple of them were even in plus territory. I mean, we were right already in field goal range when they gave us the ball. And when they create 3, if we don't turn it over, to be plus 3, it's pretty hard to lose. And even with, some of the other struggles. And then one of our turnovers was a pick 6, which I think they went for 2 and got it. So it really was an 8-point gift.
Yeah, true.
And then the fumble was in field goal range, and the interception at the end of the half was in field goal range. So you look at where the interceptions occurred and the way that we sacrificed points as a result or gave them points. I mean, it's a enormous swing, and it's disappointing as an offense when your defense gives you the ball with such a short field, and at best you just come away with a field goal.
I was specifically watching the play calls after the defense got you a turnover, and I'm just kind of curious, is being more aggressive directly out of a turnover something you guys can talk about?
Well, we were. I felt like the play calls, at least a couple of them, were aggressive. We did try to take a shot, but then the defense is aware as well. So their defensive calls were ones that said, hey, they're probably going to take a shot here. Let's take things away. And so I tried to take a shot, and it wasn't there. And then we end up having to check it down or it's incomplete. So it was a balance of calling a shot, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be there either.
So the last 2 touchdown drives Would you say it's more of a product of the Bears just playing really soft, or did you find something that you could actually exploit in the next matchup against them?
I was asking myself that same question at the end of the game and then coming away from the game. As I watched the film, I felt like that defense wasn't in a prevent mode. And when you look at the way the scoring ended up, they really had no reason to be, because if we had gone down and then gotten the onside kick, it would have come down to the final play. So I don't think they could have afforded to be in a prevent mode.
Especially not that second drive.
Right. Certainly they were softer, giving up some underneath throws on the outside because they didn't want us to score quickly. They knew that if we're going to move the ball, to make us move it slowly was better. So they were a little softer and probably gave us some throws on the outside that wouldn't be as contested in other parts of the game. But in the red zone, once you get down there, I think they're playing ball just like they would be at any other time. So that was encouraging, and I think we scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. So if we're looking for silver linings or positives, anytime you can put up 17 points in a quarter, you're going to be happy.
Well, in a weird way, I almost wonder if, by them being ahead so much and forcing you to throw, if all those throws and keeping them in no huddle and not being able to sub, if that worked to your advantage, that they couldn't pass rush as intensely and they were getting tired.
Yeah, we've always said that in 2 minutes, if you're able to go fast, it helps with the pass rush, and there probably was some of that slowing them down. But your receivers are gassed, your linemen are gassed. It goes both ways, and that's why, it's any disadvantage or struggle for them is also probably one for us in the sense that our guys were gassed too.
Obviously, everybody had a lot of blame in the loss, and there's a lot of reasons why we could have lost, and we already talked about the turnovers, but another factor I thought was that their defensive line controlled our offensive line for a large portion of the game. A specific question I have about that is there protection changes that can happen to help with that? Can we keep running backs in more often to help chip on the line and maybe run some more 2 or 3 man routes instead of 4 or 5 man routes with less protection? Or is that stupid?
No, he actually had the running back helping pretty much the whole game. And, it's one thing to say, hey, he's going to help, but if he's going to help on Khalil Mack and then Mack runs a stunt and completely changes where he is after the snap, it's a little harder for the back to track him. And, if the linebacker blitzes that the running back is responsible for, he can't help on the pass rush by the defensive end. He's got to go get his guy, and then the offensive linemen are one-on-one. So there's certain looks that even with the right intentions are going to put our linemen in a tougher spot one-on-one. But there's no doubt that, schematically you try to do things to put your guys in a, advantageous position against some really good players. And we certainly had that in the plan and called that. But for different reasons, it wasn't always perfect.
My last Misery Monday question, if you will, is why does the screen game feel so tough to get going? Not only last night, but I feel like this season. But maybe just talk specifically about last night's screens.
Yeah, I think receiver screens have been productive. When we've gone outside, we've gotten a lot of positive plays. But last night, I think it was specific. I think we called a screen to Dalvin twice, and both times the linebacker was essentially man-to-man coverage on Dalvin. And so when he sees Dalvin run out for a screen, he sprints to him. And that makes it really hard for the lineman to get to him and get a block on him and then allow Dalvin to catch the ball and get up the field unimpeded. So the hard part was the specific coverage and the way the linebacker matched the screen. And so we can talk about if the linebacker's going to do that, what are some other things we can do with the running back to put that linebacker in a bind if he's going to be so aggressive covering Dalvin. But there's no doubt that when you have a pass rush coming after you, we got to get the screen game going. And when you have a talent as dynamic as Dalvin, one of the best ways to get him the football is in the screen game. And that's something that we'd love to get going more in this last 6 games. And we can get a lot of explosives and dynamic plays if we can get it going.
So turning the page on that game, I feel like we're kind of right where we were last week. And here's what I mean by that. Yeah, the playoffs are still in front of us. In fact, if they started today, you guys would be in the playoffs. Not only that, but the 2 teams you're going to be fighting for a wild card spot for, you play the next 2 weeks, the Packers and the Seahawks. What can happen this week to help turn the page and get ready for the Packers game?
Well, it's hard to believe. Yeah, I didn't believe when I heard it, but if the season ended today, we'd be in the playoffs. And so it's about getting into the dance because anything can happen once you get there. So to this point, we're a playoff team, and it doesn't really mean a whole lot with 6 games left. But the fact is, we've put ourselves in a position to be in if the season ended today, and that means that we now have a 6-game season to stay there and hopefully move up in such a way that we can get a home playoff game. But it's all right there in front of us, like we talked about all bye week. That was kind of the theme was, hey, at this point, what we've done is behind us. We're in position now. We have everything ahead of us that we want to accomplish. We just have to go out and play good football the second half of the season. And I would echo that message the same way a week later with 6 games to go. So start with the Packers at home, again Sunday Night Football. And, we got to find a way to get it done.
Last night didn't change anything about how I feel about that. When you look at it, it's kind of like, well, your 4 losses besides the Bills game, was not good. But the 3 losses besides that are against teams that are all in first place and obviously fighting for a first round bye. So you can look at it that way. And all 3 of those games, they're winnable. It's you're in those games, But at some point, obviously, we need to start winning them.
Right? Yeah, you got to beat winning teams, and those are 3 good football teams that are playing really well and are hot right now. And unfortunately, we've gone 0-3 against them, and we played them all pretty tough. And I think we all feel like those games were a turnover or 2 away from being a different story.
If we beat the Packers this week and we beat the Seahawks next week, we'll be feeling way better than we are right now. So that's how week to week the league can be.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
No doubt.
What's your final message you want to leave for the fans this week in closing?
Well, I think we have a really good locker room, and it's not going to be finger pointing. It's not going to be players who, get discouraged or start to check out. It's the opposite. Guys are going to dig deep and support one another and play hard for one another. And, it certainly isn't a great feeling coming into work today, but I like our group, and I like where we're at in terms of our chemistry. And, we're going to find out what kind of football team we have ultimately here in these last 6 games. So, stick with us, stay with us, and we'll try to give you something to cheer about here in these last 6 weeks.
Tough times don't last. Tough people do.
Amen.
Thanksgiving this week, Kirk. As a football player, you have not been able to really partake in Thanksgiving or Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Not
That's
fully.
one of the downsides. There's a few downsides, but one of them with the NFL is that Thanksgiving and Christmas have pretty much been on pause for a long time for me compared to what I was used to growing up, just because of the nature of our schedules. I've played 3 of my 6 seasons prior on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, true.
And then when you play on Sunday, you still go to work on Thanksgiving, and then usually he lets us out a couple hours early in the afternoon so we can get home and still have a Thanksgiving meal. But we'll be watching the games like everybody else on Thursday.
Years down the road, you'll get to partake in the Thanksgiving glory. I think it's seriously underrated. I mean, you eat a bunch of food, you hang out with your family, and you watch football a day. That's like a top holiday for me.
As my dad said, there's a whole bunch of F words around Thanksgiving weekend that make it his favorite holiday.
No.
Football, family, fellowship, friends, food, fun. He goes on and on. So it's his favorite holiday, and it's because of all the F words he said.
I don't know if I like that, but everybody go out and enjoy your Thanksgiving. I know I will be. Next week, we play the Packers on Sunday night. I will be in Minnesota. Kirk and I are possibly lining up another guest. So next week, Monday's episode will hopefully be with a guest and hopefully be a Victory Monday episode after a huge win over a rival. Just a reminder to everybody, you can always find this podcast on officialize.com, and then you can also find this video portion on officialize.com. Also, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Tweet us, use the hashtag AskKirk. We'll get to some questions, and maybe this week we'll put out a tweet saying who our guest is going to be, and they can get questions in for that guest. So that could be kind of fun. But Kirk, let's go out and let's get some victories. Let's get some victories coming up here. Let's get a victory on Sunday, and hopefully we'll be having this conversation on Monday a lot more joyful.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We love you guys. Peace.